What's good, everyone, and welcome back to another reaction video. Today we're reacting to We Solved FNAF, and we're not kidding. This is the third part. We're going to talk about who is Cassidy. Last time we were going on the discussion about the missing children, what order they were killed, who was killed first, and etc. Honestly, that one just has a lot of things that can prove and disprove the order of which the children died. So, yeah, that is a complicated subject, personal opinion. But anyway, other than that, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button down below. Hit the subscribe button to support the channel, support the content provided, and so on and so forth. Hit the notification button, be notified immediately when a video comes out. And if you have any videos you would like to recommend that I should react to, put it down in the comment section below, and I'll react to it as soon as possible. Other than that, the link to this video will be down in the description below, so be sure to look there, check out the original video, and give the creators some love and support for the video they made. Now with all this said, let's start this video.
Newsflash, asshole! I've been
Cassidy.
the entire goddamn time!
Alright! Time to get mauled by the entire fan base. The floor is yours. Thank you, thank you. Stick with us. This is groundbreaking, I promise. The Cassidy we just discussed for minutes show on screen is not canon. I think a lot of us have forgotten this, but all of the above is speculation. She may be the spirit talking to Crying Child. She may be a parallel to Andrew. She may be the Golden Freddy Kid. She may be the Vengeful Spirit. None of
Yeah, if you didn't put, like, if we didn't have as many books as we have now, and if we didn't have as many games as we do now, and other things to speculate one thing and another and put pieces together, you'd be kind of right on the speculation part, except, a lot of it is actually going to be freaking true. Literally, this whole section is literally stated, and I have already gone over it in game theory, but whatever, let's just go.
None of that is ever spelled out in canon.
To be fair, very little is. For instance, we don't actually have textual confirmation that the crying child is an Afton.
We just have to assume from his connections to Michael, Afton's connections to the FNAF 4 house, and the security breach family of staff.
How is that speculation? Like, seriously, how is that speculation? We literally have a kid who's connected to Michael Afton, who is teased and mocked by Michael Afton, who I believe, I can't remember if it was for sure or not, but he commented and called Michael brother, I think. I might have to actually look through all that again. I'll just watch some things about FNAF 4, because in all honesty, going through everything gameplay wise is a literal nightmare. No kidding. It actually, honestly, 4 would have to be the scariest of all the FNAF games, in personal opinion. Anyway, yeah, we have all this stuff, all these connections, all these things that relate to him and how close he is to the Afton family. If the crying child wasn't an Afton, then there's a lot of speculation that you're gonna have to counteract and whatnot. Because in all honesty, just claiming that information is false is literally, like, gonna bite you in the butt. Like, no joke. Nothing you say is gonna actually counteract anything about the matter on that part. Like, there's too much evidence to prove that he is an Afton. Say he isn't, it's kind of dumb.
Bots. Staffton bots.
But the thing with Cassidy?
This little girl is not the Vengeful Spirit. She is not Fredbear's possessor. She's not even one of the missing children. The Vengeful Spirit, as will be discussed later, is someone else, and Fredbear's possessor, and the last missing child, is the Crying Child, Cassidy Afton.
And you might be wondering, but he didn't go missing, he died? We'll get there.
Let's look again at that logbook code. Yes, the hints on each page are from Faded's writing of my name. This led us all to believe that the name in the word search was, well, Faded's name. But Faded didn't make that code. Altered did. The coordinates are given via altered numbers, with the last couple being provided by Michael Afton himself, as we can tell with his red pen. And the word search is all altered text. The name is found through altered text, and the other hidden messages, "It's me, who are you, what is your name," are altered. None of it is in Faded's writing. Faded does write on the next page over, and that would be a great opportunity for the authors to establish that this is Faded's name, but they don't. Faded instead writes, underneath a mirror, "What do you see?" Faded asks on that page, "When you look in a mirror, what do you see?" And Altered responds, "It's me, Cassidy."
But, you say, Cassidy was a different character in the books. She was a little girl. Yes, she was. And you know who else was in the missing child incident and in the novels? A boy named Michael. Michael Brooks, who isn't canon to the games either. Instead, Michael is William Afton's son, and so is Cassidy. Neither Michael nor the crying child are canon in the novels, with Elizabeth appearing to be the only Afton kid in the trilogy, so their names were repurposed for the missing children. Michael Brooks and Book Cassidy are not the children who died in the games. Instead, they have the names of the missing Afton children in the narrative.
Okay, and that's supposed to prove what? I mean, the idea still is an interesting one. The crying child actually being named Cassidy. That would have solved a lot of stuff. It's just too bad that a lot of the stuff in the logbook, and considering the fact that not everything is supposed to be taken seriously, there's supposed to be like hints and all that within the books to get a general idea about it. What's going on, basically? Basically, let's add to it. Literally in the book, there is a little girl, the description of someone named Cassidy, and it's not this girl that's being shown through the image here. There is a book where there's a girl named Cassidy who has the same description as a girl in the logbook who is in front of an animatronic. Same description, same hairstyle, same looks, and all that. The only difference is the age gap, and that's basically because in that one book, I think it was one of the trilogy books. I don't know. But yeah, the second you start pulling that kind of stuff, you start seeing connections. So to say that this person does not exist, even though there is hints of this person actually existing within the logbook that belongs to Michael Afton, yeah, that is so easy to dismiss.
Michael and Cassidy Afton. Jeremy, being a missing child named in the games and not the books, when they were written around the same time, was cluing us to look at the names of the two who didn't appear in that image.
Not to mention that the Fazbear Frights parallel argument doesn't work. Jake and Andrew have specific sight and touch powers because of their placement in the body, so I can't see having a point towards CC having less control than Cassidy is, as we say in Fazbear Frights, Stinger moot. Also note that the Stitch Wraith doesn't speak until it's only Jake in there. The only other time in these books we see two souls possess one animatronic, Rosie Porkchop in Together Forever, the animatronic very conspicuously uses plural pronouns to refer to themselves, your ladies in waiting. Which is interesting seeing as Golden Freddy's only and very iconic line is in the singular. It's me. Not us. Just me.
As for the two spirits in game, the other glowing eye and Fredbear, that's not Cassidy. That's Charlie. Again, stick with us for a sec.
Think about the Happiest Day minigame. We see 6 spirits there, the 5 missing kids and Charlie, and when the game is completed, all 6 lights go out. Most people explain away the second Golden Freddy kid not being in Happiest Day by saying Cassidy is already torturing Afton in hell. But that means her soul hasn't moved on like the others have. So if her soul hasn't moved on, why does her light go out? The lights going out symbolizes them moving on. It's because she's not the 6th spirit. Instead, it's Charlie, the 6th person here, who moves on only after she's sure all of the other children have too. And why is she represented by a light in Fredbear's eye?
Really interestingly, in FNAF 6, when the puppet is finally trapped within an animatronic, it's within a Freddy animatronic with one visible eye, one golden eye, named after the left eye that is visible.
Okay, I can see your point, but again, that doesn't really have solid proof. That is an interesting point, though, I will admit. That is very interesting. If this was made like around FNAF 6 being released, then yeah, I'd say this would be a hit theory. But no, not at this point. Mainly because A, in FNAF 3, Charlie is physically there as the puppet. B, if that was going to be the case, why Golden Freddy? Why not her regular mask? That would make more sense. Plus, the light doesn't really show two people leaving. It's just glowing one eye. And if you do count two, it's just they're leaving this realm and they're waiting. Possibly for Charlie, but that's more of a maybe, if anything.
Charlie is the left eye of that FNAF 3 cutscene. This is also reflected on her grave on the hill, being placed behind the other children and up to the left. The 6 spirits in Happiest Day were always the 4 missing children, Charlie and Cassidy Afton.
The glowing eye is the only hint in the games of 2 spirits in Fredbear. If it's supposed to represent Cece and Cassidy, why are there no hints towards 2 Fredbear souls literally anywhere? Hellpointed 2 really kicked off this interpretation in our minds. They have 6 graves, 6 poppets, and 6 Voltron figures. They could easily have had the Fredbear figure split in half, or 2 Fredbear poppets, or something like that. But they didn't. Because there's only one Fredbear spirit.
This, of course, brings up the question of who Fated Text is. If Altered is Crying Child and Crying Child is Cassidy, who's Fated? It isn't Michael, he writes in red pen, and given that he provides 2 of the coordinates, it's safe to assume he was aware of the spirits trying to communicate, making him a third party. Also implies that he recognized the second spirit was trying to spell out his name and was trying to help him remember it.
The Fated Text then has to be someone who knows the Crying Child.
First of all, think about it. When does Mike fill out the logbook? He's definitely the security guard for the first game and the 6th, with the others a bit more up in the air. All we know is this book takes place after Sister Location, since he references it. And if Ennard is the Molten MCI, that would place this logbook also after the first game, because assuming the pieces of the original animatronics were in the fun times, see Henry's He Took Everything From Them Again, then FNAF has to take place before Sister Location. Now, Immense Andrew brings up in the survival logbook is still important, and it changes FNAF 3, that this book could very well take place during the third game and might be revealing Michael as the Night Guard. It shows basically the biggest evidence we have on that theory, with Fazbear Frights' office being illustrated in the book with Foxy as the Night Guard. The more modern lingo also implies that this is a more modern book, which would put it in the timeline of 3 or 6. FNAF 6, meanwhile, has a decent basis as well. This would tie into their close release dates and adds a bit more context to Michael drawing his own gravestone when asked where he will be in a year, since he knew where this restaurant would end up. So then, what does that leave us? With the candidates we have for Fated, we're pretty sure that this book takes place in FNAF 3. The Fated Text is most likely Charlie, trying to prompt Cassidy to remember himself for the happiest day. If it takes place in FNAF 6, then it's probably William, who is trapped inside of Scrap Trap.
Because in FNAF 6, Scrap Trap is no longer just Spring Bonnie. As pointed out by Stormmister in his video, I Found a Reason for Afton to Look So Weird, the muzzle and feet of Scrap Trap are not Spring Bonnies. Rather, they are Golden Freddy's. Stormmister points out it's very likely that these pieces were picked firstly to repair himself following the fire, but secondly, possibly, in hopes of taking away the animatronic mode's programming that makes him leave to follow audio cues, to give himself control back of his own body. It appears that
That would be an interesting thing to think about, in all honesty. And it would make sense, I suppose, because a lot of the stuff about Scrap Trap just doesn't really seem to fit anymore. I guess you could say that anything below the head just got, shrunk, squeezed, decreased in mass, got smaller. Whatever term you want to use when it comes down to it, I guess. But yeah, I guess if you put it that way, it would make sense to think of it like that, but now that I think about it, the face does seem really, really out of design character to the Springtrap. Like, complete left field. The only other possibility is that, actually I don't remember the original design of Spring Bonnie, so I can't really say on the top of my head if I'm right or wrong. Gonna have to look into that one.
after the FNAF 3 fire, Scrap Trap pieced himself together with some of Fredbear's pieces. And as we know from the fun times, moving the metal moves the remnant. When ripping apart Golden Freddy, whatever spirit was inside was put into Scrap Trap. And Scrap Trap may or may not have ever realized that.
There's something else too. Scraptrap would have known where Golden Freddy was at this time. Because we were also told where Golden Freddy was, and didn't realize. In finding out where Golden Freddy was, we get more evidence that it did not hold a fifth missing child, but rather the soul of Crying Child only. Remember Night 4 of Sister Location? In it, we're trapped in a springlock suit by Circus Baby, who simply says it's from her old pizzeria and was never used, or at least, not in the way it was supposed to. Said springlock suit is never identified, but here's the thing. Sister Location happens right after Freddy's closes, and springlock suits were discontinued long before Freddy's closed. They were discontinued after those multiple
Okay, I think I get the idea of what they're going with here, but no, just no.
simultaneous failures
Let them
in
explain, I
1983.
guess.
Why would they build another one for Circus Babies? And if so, why only one? If springlock suits were coming back into fashion, why only make one springlock and not the others? And if it's an old suit, we know Fredbear's only had two mascots, Spring Bonnie and Fredbear.
Right now we have two specially designed suits that double as both animatronic and suit.
They were the only springlock suits, and they were both used. But not at Circus Babies. If Elizabeth was a toddler when Fredbear's closed, she wouldn't remember those suits being in use, and Circus Baby herself barely has Elizabeth's memories at this point. Most of her consciousness is of what a robot itself saw. If Fredbear and Spring Bonnie were moved to Circus Babies, they wouldn't have been used, considering it closed day one after Baby scooped Elizabeth. They'd also be old suits, having been collecting dust for a few years now, so she wouldn't think they'd been used at all. At least, not in the way they were supposed to.
In Help Wanted, we see 4 Endo-01 skeletons in the furnace, leaning heavily towards the molten MCI theory, which is that Afton broke the original animatronics down, melted them into Remnant, and injected them into the Fun Times, which is why they're like that. But there's only 4 skeletons and no Golden Freddy suit, and no Spring Bonnie. He carted the original 4 over here, so why not them? They're not in the molten MCI, meaning we're in one of these 2 suits.
And Spring Bonnie's suit can't be the one we're trapped in. When Afton crawls into it, it's just laying in an abandoned Freddy's back room.
Gonna. Aha! It does have that design, like the original Bonnie.
Doesn't look like it's been moved in a long time. Certainly not to Circus
Well,
Babies.
that's disproven.
Which only leaves one springlock suit we could be inside of. Yes, that's right. In Night 4 of Sister Location, Michael Afton is shoved into the same suit that he shoved his brother into. He is in the Fredbear suit.
It's just big enough for one person to fit inside, but just barely.
Look at the
Okay, that just doesn't make sense. You're saying Golden Freddy was moved from the original location to the sister location, but then it was moved again to the FNAF 1 location. No, it was from the original location, Fredbear's Family Diner, then moved to the second location. Then you're saying it went from the second location to sister location, then was moved from sister location to FNAF 1, and in FNAF 1, whatever remained was put into FNAF 3, and do you see the problem here? Do you see the problem here? Even though William Afton technically owns both Bonnie and Freddy, that just wouldn't make sense. Especially when you have to consider the fact that Golden Freddy has been in multiple locations. And the only way that would even work is if Henry allowed William to take the suit. And considering that it's in FNAF 2, a time where William was banned and kicked off the property itself, yeah, that doesn't really make sense. Even then, with everything that happened, it would still technically be Henry's property. So for William to get it back, that would be a whole lot of legal stuff and issues that I am not even going to discuss or even talk about, because that is another complicated thing to even think about. Like, no joke. And to say that somehow appears in the sister location, that's like, wow. That's basically saying that if sister location was before the FNAF 1 thing. That means before when William even died to begin with, if that is the case. But I'm pretty sure he died way before Michael even got to even be a night guard at FNAF 1. So yeah, for that to work, that means William's death has to happen way later than it's supposed to. And he has the suit in sister location, but then have people transfer it over after a certain time period to the original, well, not the original, but to FNAF 1. That is, no. Do not even go there. That is just complicated to think about.
The hole for the smile could easily fit the animatronic's muzzle, and more importantly, the suit has no eyes, just holes, just like withered Golden Freddy, eyeless with an open smile as the jaw falls. Now even compare it to the trailer footage from Into the Pit. Look at the eye shape. It's the same mask. Girl, you have the same fucking face.
Also, if you ask about the face opening up, the other animatronics do that too. The fun times aren't special. In an interview with Dawko, Scott Cawthon said something.
Yeah, no. I'm gonna have to disagree. The face opening thing, yeah, that's not new and all that. No, the issue I have is the way of how they open. That is a way more complicated thing. And just saying that them just opening up in general means that they're opening up the same way. Yeah, no, that doesn't make sense at all.
Interesting about this suit.
So here's an interesting one, which I don't know if you're going to answer or not. So in Night 4, when we're inside the suit, a lot of people wanted to know whose suit is that.
Whose suit is that? I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to answer that for you.
That's fine.
That's gonna have to remain a topic of discussion.
If it was just a new animatronic, why not just say that? Because it's not. It's Golden Freddy, and knowing that would have spelled out one very important thing. If Michael was in Golden Freddy for Night 4, then there is no body in there. There is no missing child inside.
We know for a fact the other 4 missing children are literally inside their respective animatronics. The animatronics smell like death, they release blood and mucus. Their bodies were hidden there and never moved. So why would Fredbear be different?
Because Fredbear was never meant for any random child. It was always meant for Cassidy Afton. Cassidy Afton was the 5th missing child.
First, let's once again bring up the order of deaths in Help Wanted 2. Susie Chica, Fritz Foxy, Gabriel Freddy, Jeremy Bonnie, then Golden Freddy Kid, then Charlie. An argument can be made the crying child may have happened afterwards, as the Bonnie mask is found after the graves are all lit, but we must remember Midnight Motorist. The bite, which would have been represented by the mask in this interpretation, needs to happen before Charlie dies. CC isn't the mask, he's the plush. Something we have to remember right now is that the crying child doesn't immediately die from the bite. He's in the hospital for some time. He's alive long enough for Michael and William to talk to him, and for William to promise to put him back together. We think that William took his son out of the hospital, either pulled a parent card and said he needs to be at home to recover, or maybe he just smuggled him out. Maybe he did that at the beginning and shoved him in that nice little underground bunker with all his toys in it. Or maybe he does this on the last night. We're not entirely sure. It's not really that important. What we are sure about is that while CC is in his fun little coma, William starts killing, because he's practicing, learning how to put them back together.
In Tales from the Pizzaplex, it's shown that the material of Remnant, at least the owner's own, has healing properties. If he knew or was discovering this, maybe that's what he was after.
After shoving Susie into Chica to hide her, Chica starts acting strange. While Susie isn't fully possessing the suit, it's still being a bit erratic, twitching at random intervals. Perhaps her agony is already inside of it, keeping her pain inside while her remnant wanders, as seen in Fazbear Frights, when Susie wanders her home all day, then disappears with the spirit of Chica at night. But Chica's still acting weird, so William tries the same thing with Foxy. Kill a kid, shove them inside. Henry has set up a safeguard, a security puppet to make sure children don't leave the area, and specifically to make sure his own daughter, Charlotte, is safe. After one disappearance, you can't have any more, can you? But his flaw here is thinking that someone is luring the children out of the location. William is working on the inside. He kills Fritz. He's starting to figure out that the remnant of dead souls may be able to attach itself to metal. Or maybe the suits are just acting weird because there are bodies inside of them clunking up the motors. He's gotta try again. Only this time, now that
Yeah, that just seems like a too much of a loose theory. No offense, that just seems off for some reason. Like coincidence that happened, and yeah, no, I don't see that happening in
the
all
puppet didn't
honesty.
work, we have cameras.
The final night, he lures Gabriel and Jeremy together. The last two to go were Freddy and Bonnie, which tracks. In every game, in every restaurant, it's you and me together forever and ever. Of course they died together. And when he killed them, either he thought he'd figured it out or realized he'd been caught on camera and was running out of time. When we look at Fredbear's twitching cutscene in UCN, the soundtrack titles the scene Void. Pay attention to the way this bitch moves. First off, it's an undamaged Fredbear. It's not Golden Freddy yet, and it's far from withered. It's a Fredbear in its prime. You know where else we see this twitching? In the original trailer for Five Nights at Freddy's 3 with Springtrap. Showing possession, right? Perhaps. You know what else it may be showing? Let's look at a very specific instance in the books. In Fazbear Fright's 1:35 a.m., in the short The New Kid, when Kelsey gets into the Golden Freddy suit and gets spring-locked.
And the sound wasn't the bad part. It was bad, yes, but the bad part, the really, really bad part, was the way the suit started jerking in a spastic, horrific dance. It looked like the moth-eaten, mildew-blotched gold bear was convulsing, but it wasn't the bear. Devon knew it wasn't the bear. It was Kelsey. What did I do? Look at it. It's still moving. He's still alive. We have to get him out of there. Devon glanced at the suit. It kind of pulsed, like it was a large, bloody heart getting in its last beats.
This shot isn't just showing that the suit is possessed. The other suits are possessed, but don't twitch like this, because they're not spring-lock suits. The same twitching can be seen in the film when William is in the back room, dying from his spring-locking. This shot and the FNAF 3 shot are shots of someone being spring-locked, and the void shot of Golden Freddy is Cassidy's spring-locking. Cassidy was placed into the Golden Freddy suit, and whether intentionally or not, spring-locked. This kid was taken off of his life support, put into his worst nightmare, and made to suffer one of the most horrific deaths imaginable. William watches Fredbear do this horrible twitching as Cassidy, whether awake or not, dies, and then the suit goes still. And when it doesn't move after long enough, William concludes that it didn't work. Which, oh shit, it, quote-unquote, didn't work. All of this was for nothing. But now he has a whole new problem. He can't just say Cassidy finally died in his coma. Look at his body. If it hadn't been completely ripped to actual shreds like in Together Forever...
The fact that they're discussing on how they managed to take a body from a hospital, like, it's the most easiest thing in the world. It just sounds ridiculous, I'm gonna be honest. Like, completely out there.
It's mangled beyond belief. Not a single person is going to look at that and think those were from the coma. Everyone's gonna know something's up, and considering at least one other person has been spring-locked in the past, the wounds might be recognized. Henry would recognize the wounds and identify them. They see these wounds on Cassidy, they'll realize he was stuffed into a suit, and possibly begin to look into the others. William panics. He'll leave the other children where they are to rot in the suits, but not his son. Instead, he takes the body out. He removes Cassidy and puts his body in a box. To hide his failure, his horrible crimes, and to put his son somewhere he might be able to grab him should he actually figure out how to put him back.
Okay, that is an ironic twist to put there. Similar to what the books does, but not completely. Too bad. It's probably not very accurate, in all honesty.
Back together, he buries his son in an unmarked grave in the woods.
Completely
Strange
accurate,
pile
that
of dirt
is.
in Midnight Motorist. The next day, then, the police search the Freddy's security cameras for Gabriel and Jeremy. They see them being lured away by someone in a spring Bonnie suit, and come to one conclusion. It has to be one of the owners. Now that the spring-lock suits are decommissioned, they're the only two who would know where the suits are and how to use them.
But when they get to William, he tells them that not only was he definitely totally home all night, but his son is missing too. His son, who was sick and dying, disappeared, or got kidnapped. How awful. How tragic. And so, who gets arrested? Henry. Someone was arrested the night after the final 2 MCI went missing, and was later connected to the 5 disappearances. Obviously, Fritz and Susie were tied in, but the 5th kid was William covering his own ass. He let Cassidy slip into the missing child incident, hiding not only the fact that he knew where Cassidy's body was, but that he himself was the killer. He can't be the murderer now that he's a victim himself. He's one of the grieving family members of a lost child. So, Henry, the only other person who can operate the springlock suits, is arrested. And convicted.
Don't forget, the second newspaper in FNAF says that the suspect was convicted. As we stated before, it couldn't have been William, who still had control of the franchise in the years following the incident. But Henry? Not only would he be just as suspicious as William once they knew about the springlock suit, Henry disappears from the game's storyline until FNAF 6. He disappears for roughly 30 to 40 years, depending on when FNAF 3 takes place and when the MCI would have happened. It's not because he just
Yeah, that bit. In all honesty, if I remember correctly, I think they said that FNAF 3 is like 2021 to 2024, one of these years. But yeah, that is the case about that, so no need to worry there.
left. He was arrested, convicted, and imprisoned. Henry unwillingly took the fall for William in the missing children incident.
And, following his arrest, what happens? His daughter is shunned by the other kids. Whether they exactly know or understand what's going on or not, they know her dad used to be in charge of the place and is now under police custody, and he's the reason all those other kids went missing. So they bully her, and, one fateful night, lock her outside.
Now Henry is imprisoned, and can't be there for her. The security puppet is trapped in its box, and the kids lock Charlie outside, not wanting the killer's daughter at their party. Charlie, meanwhile, just wants to go back in. Then William drives up.
William's drunk. He killed 4 children and for nothing. Whatever he was trying, he ended up with a dead end, or at least 5 dead ends. He has to pretend that Cassidy is just missing and that he didn't bury him alone in the woods, that he didn't kill 4 children and let his business partner take the fall for him. Utah is a death penalty state. Henry will most likely be put on death row for this. And for what? For Cassidy to just die anyway. He drives up to Freddy's in his drunken stupor, and he sees Charlotte outside the building, locked out. His rage and anger at himself and at Henry, the man who built the animatronic that bit his son, takes over, and he does one final kill. He murders Charlotte Emily in the alley. He's not hiding her body, though. He doesn't care anymore. He just leaves her outside in the rain and drives home.
In this, he may have saved his own ass once again. When Charlotte is inevitably found, she won't be chalked up to a victim of the same killer as the MCI. The death is completely different. She wasn't lured away, and her body was found. It'll be chalked up to a copycat or a vigilante hoping for vengeance on Henry. It won't prove Henry innocent. If it's a different killer, then they can't say we must have gotten the wrong guy, seeing his kids are still dying. Charlotte dies, and Henry is still in jail for it.
Later that night, Afton drives home. He tries to see Michael, only to find he's escaped to that place. And what is that place? The gravesite. How Michael discovered the unmarked grave is unknown. Perhaps he saw on the night his dad buried it, sneaking after him when he stopped to grab a shovel. Maybe he saw his dad visit once and started to piece together what it was. Or maybe, just maybe, Cassidy was trying to show him. Unbeknownst to William, his plan had worked. Cassidy's soul was now tied to Golden Freddy, but it wasn't like the other souls. It was confused, volatile, because the soul was separate from the body now. The body wasn't in Golden Freddy, it was buried in the woods. Golden Freddy appears outside of Michael's window and beckons him to find him. It's not the actual suit, though. It's physical enough to leave prints, but the suit itself doesn't move. Think of the scene in the 2023 film where Golden Freddy's ghost is present enough to kill Aunt Jane, but also gets into the house without breaking the door, if you notice. It vanishes like it's not a real suit, but sure hits like one. It can suddenly appear and disappear. In the same way, the game's Fredbear ghost works like this. It appears outside Michael's window in a somewhat stable function, while the actual suit is still sitting in a back room.
Michael's starting to suspect that his dad may not be as innocent as he appears. He wonders why his father wasn't paying enough attention to Cassidy and how Cassidy got snatched. If he was, in a coma. If he's even connected to this at all. Then he starts seeing apparitions of Golden Freddy and starts following it. Maybe he knows it's a ghost, maybe he thinks it's a manifestation of his own guilt. But he follows it and goes to a place where his father was digging one night and tries to find his brother's grave.
William is angry at Michael for going to the gravesite. If anyone sees him and figures out what he's doing, William's fucked. They'll know Cassidy is buried in the woods and not missing, and William's story will start to fall apart. William's caught Michael near the grave before, and he knows Michael suspects something is up. So, knowing Michael ran off to that place again, he vows that he's going to regret it. He's going to regret digging into his father's sins. The box holding Michael's brother? Left forgotten. For now. As for Michael, well... Let's talk about the Nightmare Gas!
More stuff related to Nightmare. That's fair. It was an interesting character. Very different from everyone else. But yeah, this is honestly a really crooked theory. Like, it has its points, but it has a lot of flaws too. To say it's flawless is like not really possible to say. I mean, come on. Do you really think that place that kicked William Afton out, and he is the actual owner at the moment, would just like drag a kid outside somewhere and just kill them? You're gonna have to be kind of crazy if you think that's gonna work, because that makes no sense in all honesty. Like a complete left field moment right there. Like, you had me, then you lost me. And then you got the fact that Golden Freight just being at this whole random location for reasons unknown is okay. That means FNAF 1 has to have happened for William to gather all the pieces. That's for sure. But you can't say he has gotten the pieces either. Because he didn't disassemble Golden Freddy. He deassembled every other animatronic that was there without adding the puppet. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that that proves otherwise to this whole theory. It just doesn't make sense. Like, at all. Doesn't make sense. But yeah, with this all said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button down below. Hit the subscribe button to support the channel, support the content provided, and so on and so forth. Hit the notification button to be notified immediately when your video comes out. And other than that, tell me what you think of this theory, this part of the theory, in the comment section below. Honestly, I feel like it has some good points, but there is a lot of flaws to that can disprove it. Honestly, if this theory was made like Sister Location or FNAF 6, since they're not adding more of the recent stuff, I feel like it would have actually made sense back then. At least in personal opinion, that is. I don't know about everyone else. So yeah, with this all said, I hope you all enjoy, and I will see you all next time. Bye!